Call to order. Myself, Al Hoyt,
Dean Haracek.
John Kane, present.
Sue Gore is absent. Public comment?
I don't see any.
A motion was made to approve the June 24th meeting by Mr. Mrazek and second by Mr. Kane.
He said the meeting minutes.
Okay. First on the agenda is the public comment. If none, moving on.
Okay, we're good.
We're good?
Yep.
We have an appointment with Greg Daly. Well, which we'll bring at the end. Next on the agenda is to review the minutes of June 24th, and I make a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the June minutes.
Second motion to approve the June minutes.
Old business, Mr. Philos. Filio will speak with the board at the August meeting. The appellate tax board meeting is postponed until September 18th or the 25th. Is there a better date for the board? I'm good with either one.
I guess I don't see a problem.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't have a conflict either way.
Okay. For new business, can I get a motion to approve the June motor vehicle abatement?
I make a motion. I, Dean Haracek, make a motion to approve the June motor vehicle abatements.
I second the motion to approve the June motor vehicle abatements.
Can I get a motion to approve the WB Mason bill for $164.77?
I, Dean Haracek, make a motion to approve the WB Mason bill.
John Kane, second the motion to approve W. Mason bill for $164.77.
Can I get a motion to approve the motor vehicle commitment number 4?
I, Dean Haracek, make a motion to approve the number 4 motor vehicle commitment, sorry.
John Kane, second that motion.
Can I get a motion to approve the request to the select board to hire an assistant assessor for Sue Gore?
I, Dean Haracek, make a motion to bring to the board the assistant position to Sue Gore's on the assessor's office.
Second. John Kane, second.
You'll bring that right over. Yep. Is there anything the board wishes to discuss? I would like to make a motion to adjourn. If nothing, go to adjournment. Pause.
No, what we're gonna bring, what we were gonna originally do in the first part, which is we're gonna have a discussion with Greg. Is it Dave? Diley. And
Gene Cugie.
Gene Cuby
Yes.
of the Economic Development. Okay, well, I'll
Good evening.
Just, thank you. Introduce what we're doing with economic development right now. It's not done a lot in the past, but now with the new master plan published, we have a lot of tasks for economic development. So last year it was expanded to 9 members. And we've taken on a lot of projects. One project, for example, is we built a business directory for any of the businesses in town that wanted to be in it for free. And it's online. If you haven't been there, you got to go there. It's just remember shopsouthwick.net. And you can put a shortcut on your phone. In a few quick taps, you can get to any business in town. when you go to that site, up pops all the categories. Let's say you're looking for a restaurant, you tap on restaurants. How many restaurants do you think there are in town?
30?
There's 30.
That's what
There's 30. You
Oh.
tap on it and all 30 in alphabetical order show up. Scroll through. Let's say you want to, well, Suffolk Inn, how late do they open? Tap on that. It gives you the hours, a description of what they serve, their phone number, their address. Website, you can tap on the phone number to call, tap on the website to go to the website instantly. All of this in like 20 seconds. And not just all the restaurants, but 157 businesses now in town. So that's one of the things. Our goal is to make this a great place for small businesses, especially. Great place to do business. And one of our projects is to help evaluate potential new businesses coming in. Just to be honest, I got involved in town government because of Carvana. And it was an example of a business that I did a lot of study of and determined that it was just a horrible business for Southwick, a poor fit with our infrastructure. It would have caused horrible traffic. There would have been a big, long articulated car hauler every 5 minutes going in and out, carrying 10 cars each. And nobody really did an evaluation of what the upside would be. What would I heard some tax revenue numbers thrown out, but I don't think there's any good research. So my goal, our assumption going in is growth is good, but not all growth. There's good growth and there is growth that can have more negatives than positives. It could potentially cause more infrastructure costs to the town and services and roads and whatever else than it contributed. And so we wanted to come up with a way to evaluate all the pluses and minuses. And one of the pluses would be an evaluation of the property tax revenue. And we know from looking at, I've studied the online databases with the state and other sources I could find. And I see that right now, the share of property tax from business is 6.5% of the total. Plus there's personal property tax, it's about 5%, but I can't find what percentage of that is actually due to business. Because I know that some is business and some is, might be a second home or other property that's subject to tax. And so it's not a big part. And I also evaluated over the course of 6 years, and the share of business has actually been declining. Not because business has necessarily been going down, but because residential construction has gone up. So residential is even a higher percentage of the total of the income for the town, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It has to do with an evaluation of what is a better thing for the town. And one of the metrics I'd like to develop is the property tax revenue per acre, because land is the resource for the town that's most clearly limited. There's only so much land. That's what they say in real estate. They're not making any more of it. So we want to bring in businesses that make the most efficient contribution for the land that they take up. And it's surprising sometimes the really big businesses or big box stores actually contribute less per acre than some of the more densely concentrated small businesses. Plus, they're less flexible. They can come in and fail and move out, and then you've got a big vacant property that is the worst liability because
Does it depend on their lease?
Well, there's all kinds of complications. The lease, how much construction they do, whether that site now is inflexible. Fortunately, a lot of the things that have come and gone can be reused. We have 2 bank branches that turned into a orthodontic or oral surgery center and a dog grooming place. So things can be flexible. We've got the Family Dollar that is, probably small enough to be flexible. But notoriously, some of the bigger properties that, you can see out in other places where malls go bad, and then you've got acres and acres of asphalt and big structures, the Eastfield Mall, they just had to tear it down. We don't want huge things that can't be readapted. So my questions, that's just in general our approach to it. My questions are about additional sources of data that I can get that would help me evaluate potential tax revenue. I know that in one sense, business properties are evaluated much the same way as residential properties. You look at the market value, and I studied our online GIS mapping system. You can look at them one at a time and see the pattern. But I know that there's other elements. Is there any database? I know the total amount of personal property tax, but I don't know how it's split between, business and non-business. Is there any source of data that I know the individual returns are confidential, the Form 2s, the form of list? But is there any database that would have an aggregation by type of any additional detail of personal property tax?
I could look into that because I do personal property for there, but we do it specifically just for businesses, new and existing.
Is there a total of what the business portion of that is? We know that it's $1 million something in total. Do we know the total for business versus other kinds of personal property?
Oh, that's a good question. I would have to look into that.
Yeah, that would be a person thing of interest.
Aside from it being, data or whatever, I don't think that's a good way to get tax money to the personal property for businesses. Just my 2 cents.
Well,
I think
it's
as a
although
business owner,
that's
I can
not.
Tell you when I get a tax
Oh,
bill for a
it looks
personal
like a
property,
horrible.
it's-
I totally agree with you
Yeah.
that I look at that form of list and say, I would hate to fill this out.
Yeah, I think it's
That's
really
horrendous.
it's
Nitpicking.
Yeah, you start
But-
nitpicking, and it's a way for
It's
to start having issues between, assessors and businesses and things like that.
Oh, I
you
totally-
didn't go after his lawnmower behind his shop, but you went after mine, weed whack, that kind of stuff, and it gets.
Oh,
And I
it's
think if
I think it's
the whole
horrible,
tax rate
actually.
to go after.
But I'm not looking for whether I agree with it. I'm looking for how to estimate
Yeah.
it. And I know that if you're in a corporate form, you're exempt from a lot of it because you're being taxed
Yes.
corporately
Mhm.
by the state. And so if you're an LLC or different form of government, then that's where you get hit. Although there's a $10,000 minimum on, they won't assess anything if the property is less than 10,000. So I know there's all kinds of qualification, but it still adds up to $1 million, whatever. And the application I would like to use it for is, we had the Dollar General proposed to come in, and if we had this prepared, I would have done a quick evaluation of that. And, I was actually glad to see that they turned it away for now. I know that there can be an appeal. But that's an example. I imagine that they're corporately organized, so you're not gonna have much of any I know there's certain kinds of things that are still taxable, but for the most part, you
It's
won't
very
have very
little.
much personal
Yeah,
property
it's pretty much
tax
just
from
the property.
their inventory. That would be their biggest value, but if it's corporately formed, we're not taxing their
Exactly.
inventory.
Right.
So that's something I think people overlook. They think, oh, well, look at this big business.
Yes,
All the
But they don't
revenue-
give us anything.
But they don't give us, and plus even their property tax.
Right,
I don't know if it was a leasing situation and whatever, but
right. The dollar store is a lease.
yeah. So that would be another thing that I want to understand, but our goal is not necessarily just give our opinion. We're looking for objective measurements, factual things. We don't have direct power as a commission in the town, but we have advisory position, which has persuasive power. If we gather really solid, clear data and evidence, we can present it to the select board, to the planning board, to the people that will make the actual decisions.
Right.
In this case, the planning board. And I don't think there's any other commission in town with kind of the mission of looking at the big picture, range picture. And I'd like to be able to look 5 and 10 and 20 years down the line, because there are some businesses that give you a one-time bump, but then cost money after that. That's true of even certain types of development of residential. And we want to be able to evaluate that. And you want to look at their stability, and they'll be around there in the long run. And, you know, all of those considerations. And, you know, especially if there's some negotiation about tax abatement, which makes me very nervous to, you know, I think we would, if there was any discussion of tax abatement, we would really want to dig in and do the analysis, because, you know, if you're going to give them a break, first of all, I think that's somewhat unfair to other businesses.
It is.
If
Yeah.
one would do
Especially
that.
when you give some people breaks and not other people breaks.
And people
Right.
that have been paying into this town for many years.
Right, and I worry about a Dollar General. Do we really, that's not a need in the town, so what would happen is it would pull away from all the other convenience stores, mom and pop, and, you know, a whole variety of other retail businesses, because we've got all the things they offer are already pretty well available. So it's that type of thing is the objective things we would list to help advise the planning board in particular, but also select board. And in terms of other sources of data, I know that assessors use the CAMA. It's a computer assisted modeling
Mhm.
for assessors.
Yes.
Is any of that data potentially exportable, or is there any analysis tools available on that system?
Well, we do have reports that we can generate, and we
Okay,
have to tell it what criteria you want for that report. I would have to, I'm not exactly savvy with that. It's
Right.
usually Sue, our director, that does
Okay.
all that. So I could look into it for you.
yeah, the one report in particular that I'd be interested in is to just spit out, I don't care about even necessarily the names of the businesses or the residents, but the type, where we could analyze, here's the property size, the acreage, which would be in the database. And here's the assessment. And here's the type of, you know, the category, whatever you call it, the business or residential, or what type of business, industrial versus whatever. If we had just those few elements, I could do an analysis that would show what are the most profitable businesses for the town in terms of revenue per acre.
See, but from a town like ours, a farming town where acreage is important, if we're gonna try to push the tax burden onto higher acreage parcels.
No, I'm not talking about pushing it on
Well, ultimately, that's,
to that.
but why would you want the information? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. You wanna increase.
Okay,
the
my
value
goal.
Per acre.
You gotta understand is the goal is to use our acreage more efficiently. Not to charge it higher. In other words, and I'll just make up a case, say Dollar General wanted to come in and have a 3-acre parcel and pave it over and whatever. I want to know, is that an efficient use of those 3 acres? I would argue that it isn't. I mean, it's gonna militate against mostly the big sprawling business. It'll be against big sprawling businesses because it's a poor use. We're not going to try to push anybody out. It's about evaluating businesses that might come in and be disruptive in other ways. Like this Dollar General is a big issue for the abutters. And, one negative is it could have pulled down residential property assessments that would offset the higher assessment of the Dollar General. And there are all kinds of secondary impacts, and those are the kind of things we want to be aware of. And just, again, we're just informing people and saying, and the model that I'm thinking of primarily is that Carvana, taken huge amount of prime land and agricultural land.
I've heard
near
that
town.
prime land a lot of times, but it's been sitting there for a long
Yes.
time with
very.
nothing on it, So that has
Still
been
doesn't have it.
essentially
No.
a tax, zero tax for the past, what, however many years, and it's industrial land, but was
Yeah.
converted to lower the tax.
No, and the right use of that, it has to be evaluated. And again, it's not just the total amount, and in terms of tax, again, if you took all of our businesses put together, they're only 6.5% of the total property tax. So, adding another, little bit is not going to offset anybody's residential tax rate. Because the leverage point is so. And it's also an evaluation. If you were to go to a 2-tier tax system that has come up, it would just hurt the small businesses the most.
Crush 'em.
It would
Yeah,
crush
crush
them.
it, man, double tax rate.
So that's, I've spoken before the select board against any kind of higher rate for business because it's not appropriate for our town.
No, we've spoken as well. We want to keep it the same rate as for businesses as residential.
I totally agree with that. So just so you know where we're coming from,
And I think
we are biased towards small businesses. We love small business. We love the businesses that are owned by our residents, our friends, our neighbors. They circulate money in the town rather than a big corporation that takes it out. And
Well, I think of the 157 businesses, and not a lot of those are brick and mortar. Right, I think we're counting people that have a home business,
Home
right?
business, yes.
And things
Most
that
of them are.
count as a business.
although I don't have a whole lot of home businesses in that, as say there's 30 restaurants, there's.
Come on in,
Hey, you made it.
How you doing? I'm late.
no worries.
Told them you were caught on the, that's funny.
Beautiful mass plake.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Mark Folko, 14 Ranch Club Road, and member of the Economic Development Commission.
And part of our
City.
subcommittee.
This is our chairman, Al Hoyt.
Wait,
Nice to meet you.
And that's Dean Horacek, our vice chairman, and that's our clerk, John Kane.
Meet you.
Right. And I was had gone through our project of trying to better evaluate new businesses and telling them that our bias is toward smaller businesses. A lot of what we're talking about for tools are things that we would use to raise red flags for large outside businesses that people might think, oh yeah, it'd be great to have a huge used car processing thing that paved over 100 acres or whatever it was. Well, let's do the numbers. We're not necessarily here to just give a personal reaction. We're here to run the numbers and say, well, look at all the costs, look at all the negatives, look at the impact on the bigger picture. The fact that businesses as a whole are only 6.5%. Maybe we'd be, you say it's empty. Maybe we'd be better off if there were homes there. Maybe it should be rezoned. And we can make those recommendations. It's important to get balance of open land too. But
CPC funds.
sometimes, right, you get CPC funds. But our goal is to persuade with information.
So what kind of businesses are you guys, ideally, if you could go find your next business to come to town, what would it be? Like what kind, not a brand or a store particular or any type of name, but like what are we trying to seek out right now? I'm just curious.
First of all, I want something has jobs that are better than just minimum wage and struggling to fill those anyway. And you know, sure, it's nice to have a fancy bagel store. We employ high schoolers. That's great. I like those too. But if you have my understanding is some of these businesses with low end wages are just struggling to staff them.
It doesn't
So I
matter
would,
the wage,
I
mean,
would,
it's just-
I would love to have businesses with, you know, whether they're higher tech, I don't know if you have some
Yeah,
thoughts.
you know, I don't know enough to answer that question yet, and that's one of the reasons why we're here. We're trying to understand, you know, the impact of businesses on the town. You know, one of the things we have as our driving objective is to help improve the town economically, right? And that means, you know, good tax revenue. And what does good mean? Well, something that fits in with our master plan, something that fits in with zoning, something that fits in with the, you know, sort of the spirit and essence of our town. Personally, you know, I see some vacancies, particularly on College Highway. You know, we had the restaurant that closed, Roma's, and I understand there's some potential plans for that. But I see the Family Dollar closing, and I look at those as opportunities. Okay, we have some properties that are prominent. They're right on, you know, main drag. I think they're great properties. And bringing in some, you know, helping to attract, you know, some good business. I see our role as really being the filter, so to speak, or the conduit. I shouldn't say filter, because we don't filter. We're the conduit. Where businesses that are interested in Southwick have a place to go. We're trying to streamline sort of one-stop shop, you know, helping to be of assistance to those businesses and also to be of assistance to existing businesses who want to grow and develop in town. From my past experience, I was on economic development in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. Kind of a different town, but had a history of farming, kind of transitioned a little bit. A lot of mixture of residential, some light industry. You know, they attracted a television station, for example. It was in an industrial park. Very clean industry, right? Very clean business. Brought a lot of people into town, and that drove a lot of sponsorship of the restaurants and things like that. So that was a good business for Rocky Hill. We were there. That was a coup to attract a TV station from the city into our town, and perfect fit in the industrial park. So, you know, looking at, I mean, we're very sensitive to the right fit, the right type of business, but we want to start with an objective evaluation. We started asking just amongst ourselves, how do decisions get made? How does the select board make decisions? What happened in the case of Carvana? How was that evaluated and assessed? Because there's obviously an opportunity for tax revenue. Again, I use the term good businesses, good fit. It's going to be good revenue, because we could have someone that brings all kinds of revenue to town, but it changes the complexion of the town. But our job, I think the first job is for us to, you know, sort of understand how we could objectively evaluate businesses. And one of those is what impact they have on tax revenue, and that's the area
Right,
that
and we
you are all
went
responsible
through
for. Yeah,
some of
okay.
that now, and we've talked about Cindy is gonna look at the CAMA system, and in fact, I'll just give you my card here, so you have my
Okay.
contact, and I can
Thank
follow
you.
up with you specifically on what kind of thing, because I don't think you need to fear us. John
No,
is
I'm just
expressing a
asking
little
some questions,
concern
that's all.
They're valid
about what
questions.
kind of approach, and our approach is to preserve the character, to be entirely consistent with the master plan that was agreed to, and they're right now in the process of building the implementation team. They're looking for 3 residents to be on it. They're recruiting that because they have 1 person from select, 1 from planning, and then 3 residents to implement it. And we've got a long list in EDC of goals we have within it. You know, for example, one thing we're gonna do in the next year is create a recreation destination map for Southwick that'll be sponsored by the businesses. They'll pay it for, it won't cost the town anything. But it'll promote the right kind of visitors, not the North Pond crowd, right kind of visitors to come into town and spend money and
Well, that's
for
the
the
thing.
businesses. What kind of
To
business?
get people to come in and spend money in town, that's the thing I don't see
You need a
is,
draw.
we're drawing
More
people in to
draw.
use our resources, but not to replenish them, like, this isn't for the EDC or whatever, but I'm just, just with that northbound that you brought up.
Oh, we don't want that.
Stuff
kind of
like that,
people to come
that's
in.
why if we, like, I was asking what kind of businesses.
What kind of business you
Yeah.
in?
I do heavy construction
Okay,
and equipment repair.
are you in our directory?
No, I'm in Agawam.
Oh, you're in Agawam.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you're not in.
I can't find any property in Southwick.
Okay, so yeah, we want to
That's a
bring
good
in
point.
people that will
We
spend
can
money
help
in
you.
our.
We can help you.
stores, in our-
As a matter of fact, one of the things I did today, I did my homework. I've got a
Oh.
list of all the vacant.
Okay, we gave that
properties.
assignment on Wednesday in our.
But all
Supposed
joking
to be in the
aside,
meeting.
so if you did want to come to town, I see eventually one of our roles is how can we help you? Can we help you, find, vacant, we're starting to profile, what are the vacant properties in town? Both raw land as well as buildings and, trying to find a fit, because let's say you weren't familiar, you are familiar with town, but if you weren't familiar with town and you just wanted to know, hey, I'd like to put, whatever, clean business in town and so our point would be, how can we help you? How can we help you?
And I agree with
Yeah.
the data you guys want to collect that you can give to businesses to say, hey, this is what we're offering. And this is what, we
Yeah.
can work with, yeah.
And then also to give the town,
Right.
the selectmen,
Say the select board
Yeah,
and
select
the
board.
planning board, we want
Yeah.
them to make informed decisions.
here's
Because
the-
they're so busy, sometimes they don't have time to do
And
the.
we have the
kind of
data
research.
Yeah.
and we have now with the means to compile it and analyze it.
Right.
So here's a question that I raised at our meeting about businesses coming into town and the work of some of the other boards and commissions and even the select board. I'm not passing judgment on this, I'm gonna stay away from that, but we have potentially and likely 2 marijuana dispensaries that are gonna come into town. So I asked the question, okay, zoning is taken care of, it seems like a good job was done in restricting where, so that we don't run into problems with schools and other things. But the question I asked was, well, has anybody evaluated the 2 proposals or all the proposals, including the 2 that are up for decision, I guess? Maybe tonight, is there
Well,
something
with-
happening tonight on that?
I don't know, but that's a special case because there's a special extra tax for
Right.
marijuana.
But the
it's
point
based on the
being, the-
performance of the business.
Yeah, the point being, there should be, and I don't know if there should be a financial evaluation of those businesses. Or any business coming into town, but let's take those as a case. Tax revenue. So our standard tax revenue that we would get from any business in town. If they own those buildings, what does that generate in that particular use? How are they taxed? Understanding that. And then what equipment do they have? Because some of these places have, from what I understand, fairly sophisticated equipment to help in the production process or whatever.
Right,
they
and
do.
we discussed the property tax piece of it, which
Yeah.
is kind of harder to get, I guess. from
Right.
what you-
And then
Right.
on top of that, there would be, whatever the state, I know the state has, their extra tax on these businesses. And the question I had was, does any of that come back to town? I think that should all be part of an objective evaluation.
Oh, yeah, we should
And,
pursue that. It may not be this board that
no,
we do
right,
that piece with.
but even with the selection of which business should be given, I'd like to see an objective evaluation of those businesses, including what's in our domain, and that is the economic impact, working with you all, like, what's the tax impact? But then what's the cost impact, depending on what they're gonna do, how they're gonna be structured, what impact is that gonna have on,
Right.
other cities,
And that's where we're
town
gonna
services,
meet
police
with
and fire.
Public Works and other boards
Yeah.
to try to evaluate the cost
Right.
side.
This is
of
about
the-
getting an
the
objective
infrastructure.
snapshot of
Okay.
Right,
what the-
so let me just summarize so we don't get too far off track, that what we're gonna do is start by I think Cindy, it sounds like you're the one that has access to this database.
Yes.
The most.
Mhm.
You're gonna look into that and see if we can pull out. Ideally, what I'd like to do is get the GIS information off the geographic information map. The challenge with that is I can only look up one property at a time,
Right,
so it would take me forever to
yes,
compile it. If that's in a database format, and I can work with any database format,
right.
spreadsheet, database, whatever.
I have to see what
See what's
yeah.
there or an exported, even better, an exported chunk of that.
right.
Kind of metadata of it.
And you want to categorize like industrial, small business.
Right,
any
I'd
type
like
of
the
business.
category.
Yeah.
The total assessment. And the land area. Those are
Acreage.
the acreage. Those are initially the three key metrics. And I know that the kind of structures and everything is an important part of the evaluation, but again, our most limited resource is land.
Right.
So if they're more efficient, that's better. And then I'm wondering on business assessments, let's say it's well, let me read something from Agawam. And I want you to explain what this means. It says valuation techniques for commercial industrial properties include analysis from an investment point of view, since the purchase price the buyer is willing to pay depends in part on the return he expects to receive, projected rents, and expenses are analyzed and then capitalized to arrive at estimated market value through income approach value. I can see how that would certainly apply to an apartment
Right.
complex. Would it also apply to other kinds of businesses?
Like a mini mall or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anything with
A
anything
mini
with a
mall
rental
or even
or a lease.
a gas
Yeah.
station,
Mhm.
location is, and the setup and the location. You might, if you looked at the land, well, the land is only worth, 500,000 or something. But maybe the last purchase of the gas station was $1.5 million.
Yes. And I,
Because of the economic, the value of the business is
Right.
higher than the value of the land.
So
Because-
Agawam sends out a sheet and it says, write square footage, dollar per square foot, anything that if you're renting out your building to anybody, whether it's back to your own business, but separate,
Yeah.
if it's renting multiple storefronts.
What's your opinion of that?
As a business owner, I think it's tough because you're asking these people to maybe even limit their income to try to skate the taxes, what I mean,
Yeah, it's a perverse incentive for
Mhm.
income.
And really, I mean, do you want to go after businesses for more tax just because they're making more money? I think when it comes down to like property tax and things like, you got to go buy the property.
Right.
I don't think we can start taxing.
I was just curious.
Well, I think
whether
that's
was
what
applied
bothers
to-
me in Agawam that they do that
Right.
because, as a bit.
We're not
as a small
Department of
business-
Revenue Services here.
Right, when I started my business, right, I was started as basically by myself. And then as I'm trying to just make money, right, if you were to evaluate my business over 10 years, based on that, if I were renting at fair market back to myself, my taxes would be up to the
Right.
roof now.
Well, I mean, another way to think of it is if I'm a graphic artist and I run my business out of my home, the value has nothing to do with the property. It's about my skill as a graphic artist. But if I'm a gas station owner, the value has to do a lot with the property, the location of it, and the permanent structures that are part of the property. So they're different things.
Yeah, I agree. They're different.
And so what you're trying to do in property tax is to relate it to the market value, how much could you sell it for? Is the business that's tied to the permanent structures, has the business potential of that raise the value? I don't know, I look at some of it and just selectively looked at some businesses and I see that they're assessed, and I'm just gonna make up numbers, assessed at 500,000, but the last time it changed hands, it was $1 million, $1.5 million.
Mhm.
Is that part of the evaluation, or is?
It could be anything that would make it change. That's the thing.
How often are the,
Well, it
properties
depends. It's
we-
supposed to be like every 5 years. But it changes every year really, depending on the sales of.
so sometimes it can change?
Yes,
It's based on, because you have to report all the sales gets reported to the
to the
state.
DOR, yeah.
Okay, I mean, all of those are complications that I don't want to
Yes.
get into the process of it. I just understanding what things affect it, because I'm mostly wanting to take our approach through just a data averaging type of thing. And say,
Mhm.
well, this kind of business, so if we saw a Dollar General, and I don't know if this data would be available from other places, there's Dollar General in Agawam.
Mm.
You know, what is the tax on that? Is that available through this CAMA system, or are you limited?
No,
to
we
this
only do,
town?
yeah, it's just this town.
And I know there's online data, but it usually doesn't come down to a property. Well,
It's not
I can
precise.
look up,
Ours is precise
I
on
can look
camera.
up the GIS for that property in Agawam. So
Mhm.
for comparison, we could do that selectively too.
Mhm.
So the business is obviously taxed on the real estate. Whoever owns that real estate is taxed. What else in a business like the Dollar General, it's not inventory or anything, but if they had equipment, would that fall into the property tax?
It's personal property, but if it's leased, they don't get taxed.
But if they own their registers, and let's
That's
say
when
they
it
were
gets
to own,
taxed.
in the case of a marijuana dispensary, if they
Mhm.
were doing processing and they owned their equipment that they were using for that,
Yes,
that would be a taxable
correct.
element. Okay.
But, you know, a couple qualifications, you said there was $10,000
Is the
limit, they
minimum,
don't
yeah.
tax it. I mean,
Yeah.
Below
the
that.
total is has to be greater
Okay.
than 10,000. And
Right.
secondly, if it's a corporate business structure, most of it is exempt from tax because they pay corporate tax to the state.
Right.
So if it's an LLC or something else, they're gonna be, you know, if Dollar General is probably corporate, but if they were private business, all their inventory might be taxed.
And do farms get exempt, like farm equipment?
Um,
I believe farm equipment is personal property tax exempt. Yeah.
yes,
Is it? Okay, because
Yes.
one of the properties I looked at today, interestingly enough, so 74 College Highway, 10.8 acres.
Mhm.
And in the listing, it says previously approved for marijuana cultivation. So
Oh,
if they were
Okay.
cultivating and they had equipment, again, the question, and it's got me thinking about farms, because we have a lot of farms, we consider ourselves a farming community.
Mhm.
And that's why I asked the question about.
See, I don't know
farm
if-
equipment, like tractors.
I don't know if they consider marijuana cultivation farming. I don't think
That's a
they
little
do.
bit of,
Yeah.
I think that's a
There
separate entity.
are.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I don't
saw that.
necessarily want to get
Yeah.
into it because it's very complicated. Certain
Yeah.
hand tools are not personal property.
Yeah.
Other things are, animals can be personal property that are taxed. I mean, it gets really complicated.
Crazy.
So that's
Yeah.
where I disagree with the personal property. I mean, sometimes
I-
you're gonna get a
and-
business that, you know, say a large business, but if you're gonna be actually impacting the personal property tax, you're gonna have a business large enough that you figured out how to not pay it.
Yeah, and I told John, I
Dollar
totally
General.
agree with him. We're not trying to decide policy. That's been decided by the state. We're just trying to understand
Understand
it
it,
Yeah.
yeah.
so that we can look at a new business and quickly say, well, probably the property tax is gonna be this, there's not gonna be any personal property tax on it. And it calculates to this per acre, and we might say, you'd be better off developing it into homes. You know, it's not gonna produce very much as a business. Unless it's a desirable business that really adds to the town. And an example I would give, I think Tractor Supply really adds to the town. It's just very popular and it's needed. It's performs good services. We didn't need another dollar store. So maybe that's somewhat of a matter of opinion, but those are objective measures. Those
Well, I like the
are
idea of
worth
having an
considering.
objective,
Yep.
you know,
Absolutely.
blueprint to say, hey,
Yep.
this is, fill this out and we're gonna look at it and
Yep.
say, if you check these boxes, yes, if you check these ones, no. I think
Right,
that's a good idea.
we've gotta do something that we can, doesn't take months or even weeks. We wanna do something where we can come back with a
Yeah.
quick response. So
Yeah.
we're
Fast
trying
track
to,
stuff for businesses.
Yeah, to
If
be able
we
to have
develop
someone to come
this-
to get all the information they need,
Yeah,
and also the town can collect all the information that we need.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity for collaboration, because we're, you know, with a lot of the boards and commissions in town. and
Well, I
this
think
would be one
like
of
we were talking with the data that is throughout all these boards, and if we can figure out ways to access it and share data and get good data, you know, that really tells us something.
right, and that's our goal. I think we can be the group that helps coordinate between multiple sources, and then we can kind of process that data and project it forward into the future. So, okay, well, we appreciate your
Yeah,
time.
just a couple other really quick questions, and I may have missed this, but if a business is concerned about their assessment, they would follow the same process that you know, a homeowner would in terms
Yes.
of coming to you for like an appeal, and then with a periodic reassessment that occurs, same thing? They would
Yes.
follow that same, okay.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily the business, it's the property itself. That's-
Sure, right,
Yes.
right. It would be the
Yes.
property. Which could be business.
Yeah.
Could be. Private.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Great,
this has been helpful. We really appreciate your time and I'll follow up with you, Cindy. and
Sure,
give you a
absolutely.
little
Give
time.
me some time. I'm by myself. So,
Yeah. No, I
we'll
understand
keep you
that.
company.
yeah.
And you got my card calling.
Yes.
I just retired in the last year, so I'm
Congratulations.
flexible on time. I kept really busy, but I'm flexible. I don't have
Okay.
to be tied up at certain hours, so give me a call if you start to get something or have a question.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
John, and second motion to adjourn. Time 6:23.